Welcome all. I hope you guys have a short break. So, I mean, we will actually continue with the session, which will be a part of the first, the continuation of the first section itself. So, we thought of having more face-to-face interaction in the sense that I observed that most of the students were not able to ask questions. I don't know why. It looks like they are quite formal. So, we thought that let's maybe make two breakout rooms. One, we will have the speakers from the first section, and in the other one we will have the speakers from the second section, and then you guys could actually ask them more questions. And please, let's keep it informal and ask as many questions that you can as you want, and you don't necessarily need to ask the career related question. You can also ask simpler, just how the life is in that specific city or country. So let's actually start the breakout session. So
Going
ask your
ahead.
question. You had a question, right?
Yeah. Uh, Rohit will get back to you.
Okay, first row, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. Mhm.
Okay. Hi, Krishna, Dr. Krishna. There's two Krishnas, so I'm gonna say Dr.
No,
Krishna.
please call me Krishna. Please don't be
We have
so
two
formal.
Krishna now, so I have to say to be Dr. Krishna and Dr. Krishna.
Yeah.
So, so I
We
wanted
have
to
one more
know.
doctor here, by the way. Dr. Akanksha has also joined. So we have three doctors, all three of our alumni, actually.
Yeah, and many to be doctors. Just wanted to put it out there.
Add life.
So, Krishna, I wanted to know about your research. Like, what are you doing, and also about Innsbruck because it's a beautiful city and lots of mountains in Austria, skiing. So, tell us a little more about it.
I'm working with oncolytic viruses. So I think it was very clear from the first part that I'm really interested in cancer research and also cancer immunology. So what I'm working with is called oncolytic viruses. So the concept is to use genetically engineered viruses that can be used to specifically or preferentially kill tumor cells. And the variant that I am using, we can also engineer them to act like vaccine vectors, so we can use them as vaccines against cancer antigens. So yeah, there are a lot of, I guess, young students from biotech. So I try to keep it as simple. I mean, you're always welcome to ask more questions if you have specific. And so I can share some links, so you can follow me on LinkedIn and connect. If you have questions, feel free. I will try to answer as many as I can. Yeah.
I have a good question. No, no, just the continuation after. How was your time during COVID? Because COVID, I think all the researchers became really active and they were like, "Oh, this is true, this is false." Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Donald Trump is a bad, yeah, something like that.
And now
How
it's
was
gone. You
it?
can say whatever you want.
Everyone became really active, and then everyone was like, "Oh." It was a lot of fun for researchers, definitely.
So are you asking me how was the research life in the lab during COVID, or if I'm involved in COVID
Yeah,
research?
general life during COVID,
So
average life. Yeah.
like so since I work with viruses, we are in the Department of Virology, and there was a lot of research happening in our department. And I don't know if you're aware, like one of the hotspots in Europe was actually a small ski resort in Austria, which is not very far from here. So there was this small study where they tried to analyze all these samples and get the blood from the people who were infected, trying to find antibodies against COVID, and trying to see some like immune responses. So this was a lot of work, but I would say fortunately, because this is not something I was like, it's interesting, of course, but this was not something I wanted to work on. I was not part involved in that project. So it was really the people with this, the virologist, like really. So I'm still or I was still working on my own projects, and this was tumor immunology. And so the work did not really stop in our university. So we were allowed to do home office. We had the option to do home office, But I actually prefer to work in the, so I'm actually 80% on my computer and only 20% maybe in the lab, but I still prefer to have a strong separation between my time working and at home. So when I'm at home, I even, so I rarely check my email. So even if I have to stay 10 hours, 12 hours, 15 hours, I would rather do it at in my office and then come back, and then I don't think about work. So the research went on. The number of people working in the lab, we had to somehow manage in a way that to reduce contact or like the risk of. But luckily, so far in our group, we had the luxury that since we work also like in virology, we had the option to get tested. So in the moment anyone even sneezed, we got a swab. And even I got tested. So this was, so we were really careful. And like there were some days that I had to stay at home because my test results were not back. And some people did home office, but it was, for me, it was actually good because there were not a lot of people in the office, so I could really focus. And I think it was really productive because we submitted the patent for our cancer vaccine and also submitted a paper. So like on the personal side, it was really difficult. So I also like to travel a lot, and Innsbruck is very beautiful, but it's also like the good thing about being in Europe is that you can go to a lot of different countries easily with this Schengen visa, right? Or that, like if you are in Germany or Austria, doesn't matter. So this year that did not happen. But apart from that, I think, I mean, at the end of the day, I was grateful that I had a job because there were a lot of people who suffered a lot. And so I was not the best year, but I know that I was too privileged. So I don't want to complain about it.
I had one question actually, maybe to Krishna herself. The point is that, so I looked up in your profile. You are a scientific advisor for Boehringer Ingelheim, right? So I mean, how exactly did you get that? I mean, I'm also sort of planning to maybe switch not completely to management in industrial section, but rather R&D in section. So what would be your tips? Because I'm also doing a PhD right now in Germany itself.
I think that the key, key factor was that I was working in a lab where we already have a collaboration. So the lab that I'm working in is called Christian Doppler Laboratory. So it's like partially funded by the Austrian government for translational or applied research, and then like 50% by Boehringer Ingelheim. And so it's like different labs like that exist. So it's always the collaboration between academia, so one industry and one like university. So this was actually my motivation to join this lab was to get in like contact with industry and get exposure. And then the advisor position, it was like I think the last 1.5 years I helped to establish this technique it's called single cell RNA sequencing in our department. And then we got a grant, and we got so from using the results, we even had another grant from the industry to use it for the upcoming clinical trial for our virus. So like as a side project to do some translation and research. So since I am like really focused on tumor immunology and I'm working in the virology field, so I am someone who has more knowledge or expertise in that area. So I was advising them on a lot of different things and how to design the project, how to make the budget and all these things. So that's why, because it's not actually part of the lab itself, because it's really more academic, even though it's a collaboration. So my boss suggested that he can also get me like a scientific advisor position, because he also has something like that. So he said that we can get that for you. And now I am even consider. So the paperwork always takes a little bit longer, even though I was working on this project for some time. So now we are even thinking if I move to the company itself, but this is still in discussion, so I don't know. But I would really recommend to if you want to switch, go to a lab where they have collaborations or some kind of exposure, get to know the people. That's the easiest and the best way. And also then you know not just the people as the scientists, but also as a person, and you have a better idea if you will have a good working relationship and how good they are in mentoring people.
Thanks a lot for the insights.
Sorry, sorry. One quick question. The oncolytic virus that you're making, are you focusing on a specific tumor type, cancer type? Sorry, it's just interesting. I like it.
Yeah, no, you're that's the whole point. So we have a lot of data on different preclinical models. It's effective on different cancer types, and also the first trial, it's not focusing on one particular cancer type. And I have to be careful of how much like specific information because you know when you're working in academia, it's another, like confidentiality is still an issue
Yeah,
for IP, but in industry it's really strict.
yeah, yeah. No, I get it. Thanks.
One thing maybe I would like to ask to Sahitya ma'am would be that, so you went to Texas A&M, right? As you pointed out earlier. So I would like to know that how pivotal was that experience for your further steps? Could you give the importance for, especially for the juniors who would think that, okay, do I really need an internship or not, and things like that?
I can say it's like, I already told in my presentation that it's the turning point. So it's the main step. Like, I decided my master's and PhD based on that, because after seeing all the yeah, all those labs and how the work culture and all, there I was like, it's so much different compared to what we had in, like, in our university. And yeah, the projects they are working on and all. So it's the point where I decided I have to do masters, so it really had a great impact, thanks to Rohit.
My actually another concern is that because now because of the COVID, I think it will be very difficult for students to get visa. I mean, I also did my third year internship abroad, so I also kind of relate to what you said. But I mean, what impact would the students, and do you have any tips for let's say the third year students? How should they utilize their summers? Because I doubt that people will be able to go abroad now.
Like for internships, I guess, like, for admissions, I guess, are okay. Like, people are coming from India to here, like Germany. I don't know about USA how the visa processing and all is, but internships, yeah, I think it's an issue, because I wanted to, like, some, like, few students are also applying to our lab, but no, like my professor and all are not interested in, like, because of this COVID issue, they are not interested in taking any interns from abroad. But I think we do have a great universities in India too, like IISc or like any other IITs. They do have a very good research facilities, so they can, like, yeah, they can apply there, I guess.
So the third years take the notes, I guess.
I would just like to add in that this is probably like the season for bioinformatics or like computational biology. If you can't go to a lab, but like computational biology and bioinformatics, you can do it from anywhere. So you can still like maybe whenever you're pitching yourself to a professor, like probably if you know for sure that you can't travel in that summer, but you still want to do an internship from associated with the international lab, you can always think in terms of bioinformatics projects, what you're pitching to them.
Another major problem I'm having with, just thinking about what I'm going to do after college. Like, I know I'm interested in research, but the thing is, NIDW doesn't give you that much research exposure. For example, I'm more interested in cell biology and stuff. So I know it doesn't give me that much exposure to experience things, and I was kind of counting on my third year internship to get that. And like, we don't know if that will happen. So how am I supposed to apply for graduate school without having worked on something like that before? Can any of you give any tips? Like, how does that work?
I think, as Saitya said, maybe it's at this point you should really consider applying in institutes in India. There are a lot of amazing labs in NCBS, in ISC, in IIT Madras, IIT Guwahati. There are companies in Delhi, in Pune, in Bangalore. So probably you just need to widen the search, look more detail in what's feasible at the moment. And in addition to that, as Rohit said, uh, in a way, COVID is also giving you a good opportunity, because I know, for example, there are some students who are studying right now, but also doing some sort of internship or some sort of project parallelly. So that's actually adding to your experience in a way. So try to
Mm-hmm.
find that balance between computational stuff. And there's one more thing. As Ashwin always tells me this as I'm applying for PhD right now, the lab who is actually considerate of pandemic and who understands that there were limitations and there were some issues is the lab that you want to go for, because this is reality and no one can fight it, and we just have to find a way from it. And as long as they see that you were not just sitting idle doing nothing, you were doing the best you could given the situation, I think that should be enough.
Yeah, that makes a lot of
Uh,
sense.
if I may chip in, Vatsal here. Hi, guys.
I
Uh, uh, for the question that was just asked, I mean, doing an internship is all. It's amazing. It gives you the research experience that you need, and you get to know what is the work like. But to apply for graduate programs, you do not really need that. There are
Mm-hmm.
plenty of programs that will take you even without any prior research experience, because they know that in bachelor's you don't really get that kind of exposure. So in my opinion, internships usually or mostly are for yourself to experience uh, the field, if you want to know better about what kind of field you want to enter into, right? But if you already know uh, that you want to go into research, I don't think that you will have any problems applying into graduate schools without any internships.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Maybe
I'll quickly add. Actually, yeah, I was about to say the same thing. Not a lot is expected from you when you have done your bachelor's. So join internship for the sake or the fun of exploring science or which field you want to. Try an internship. If you don't like it, don't like it. Also, do not make that I have only done an internship or I only have experience in this field, so I'll only pursue that field. In that is setting my life. A bachelor's experience, even a master experience, even if you have done a PhD in that field, that is not going to direct your career if you're interested in another field. There are so many people who pursue biophysics, who are basically physicists and are now doing biophysics or are doing completely biology just because they were interested. People keep on switching fields. It's perfectly normal. Also, it is not always nice to quantify everything. That if I do this internship, this is what I'm going to get. If I do this is what I'm going to get. 9 pointer, this is what I'm going to get. Just relax. It's life. It's very abstract. Try out different things. Uh, Explore whatever you like to do, and then apply whatever you find fine. See
Mm-hmm.
wherever you can definitely make faults. It's a hoax which says that as you grow up you cannot make mistakes. Make mistakes, then figure out something new, back out if you want to, try out something again. It's perfectly fine. uh, and then yes, again, in terms of internships, yes, research internships, or I don't know about the other ones, are a lengthy process, because then the institute or the professor has to find out if they have the funding, if they have a project for you, if they have someone to supervise you. That is, I think, a bigger problem. Funding is not an issue. Someone to supervise you, because nobody has time. Somebody has to be there to guide you and supervise you and go around you the whole time and write protocols for you, help you out. That is more important. And then there's the slow process called administrative stuff, which is again a very slow process. So it's not that they do not like you, but researchers are bound by the amount of time they can give and the amount of projects they can handle at the same amount of time. So don't get sad that it did not happen to me. Just apply somewhere else. Perfectly fine. Even if you find an internship somewhere else, it will not direct what you're doing for your master's or your PhD. It's perfectly okay.
Maybe I can just add something to that. Is that what I also like telling from someone who is now actually supervising students, something that we consider when we are looking at applications is like, how long is this person going to stay in the lab? So if you're someone like a bachelor student who has not worked in the lab before and you're only for 4 weeks, then we have to think about like how much time we will spend training the person and how much, like, we don't mind training the people, but it's also like at the end of the day, we are spending resources. We want to have some results. So this is something maybe you can also think about. So if you are staying a little bit longer, they know, like the labs that you will apply, they know that they can spend like 4 weeks training you, and then the next 8 weeks or so, you are going to generate results that will help their project. So this is something maybe you can think. I know it's a little bit difficult when you are still studying and then you only have the summer break, but this is something you should keep in mind.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I just add
Thanks.
one thing that
Yeah, sure. Go
people
ahead.
just never have enough exposure to make like the perfect choice, like right now you can do so many things. You're talking to so many people, masters, PhD, consultancy, MBA, etc. So just talk to a lot of people which you're already doing and just use their experience. So there's just 4 weeks of internship and 1 year of masters. Like you're never going to be able to make a confident decision. So whatever, just it'll be a gut feeling. Whatever you feel right in that moment, do it, and then talk to people what they are doing. That's what I did. I think that's the best you can do from there.
Yeah.
Maybe thank you, thanks a lot, Akanksha, for adding that point, because this is what we are trying to do over here. We are talking to people. With that, maybe if there is any more discussion question, I actually have quite a few questions with all of the speakers. So I mean, officially I would say that thanks for joining for day one. Obviously it's officially technically over, but yeah, now it's open for all the discussion. Thanks a lot. Okay.
I just wanted to add something at the end that so this was one of the questions that was directed to me specifically, and I think Krishna will agree with this, like about the fact that like how what did you feel about being the first batch of biotechnology department from NITL? I think like today it feels amazing to see like what, because like when we started we literally had no clue like about what to do, what to go, and like for back then like our employment options were probably like Wipro, Infosys. At the most, I guess ZS was something where two people got recruited. That was like the big dream job kind of thing. From
Yeah, I
there
mean,
to
that was like, like initially when I started, I was like, I knew that I wanted to do something to research, but it was like biotech. I was not really thinking of a PhD. I just wanted genetic engineering or something. And then like when I started to look for options in India, this was like, yeah, they prefer like B Farm and not B Tech. And you are the first batch, you don't have the right courses, the right experience. And also to find internships, I think it was not the easiest because you didn't have really seniors to ask like, what should I look for? But nevertheless, I think it worked out.
yeah.
And the most important thing is to always keep an open mind and like explore options. Try, if you don't like it, fine. You will always learn something. And I think it was also a very special experience to be the first batch. I think I felt like we were very special also for the faculty. I think we
I remember we used to joke about so when we were doing the first experiments in the lab, we were like, guys, like we need to make sure our records are good, because like 10 years down the lane, like when we come back, probably people are like for copying our protocols, following our numbers. So like we need to be careful about what
what we are actually writing, that it makes sense. Yeah, I still have somewhere my bachelor thesis, and I'm like, what the hell did we do?
Yeah, whatever we did back then wasn't really.
I think
Yeah.
that's
Yeah, so
everyone's
like coming
feeling.
from there, like where we didn't really have any clue about where, like what we could do and all, and like now to see people in like so many different career paths, like people working even at like core companies like Amgen, Illumina, Syngent, and all these, and even like Elika working in startups and all. It is just impressive to see like where the department has now progressed, like what all you can do. So like if like for my message to the juniors is that like if we like made it work, we all are here at this our part of stages. Like don't worry too much about where you are at right now. Things will work out for you also.
And don't let anyone tell you that biotech is not a good choice.
I do remember that like like they recruited us saying that like there's going to be a biotech boom in India, biotech boom in India. I'm still waiting for
Yeah.
that boom to happen.
Yeah, but
I
I
think it
do
is
hope
slightly
that,
happening now, right?
yeah, it is changing. So yeah, let's see how
Yeah, with
fast it
COVID.
is. Yeah. But I mean, that was the thing. Like I think we also had a lot of like comments from like seniors from other departments. I was like, why did you take biotech? And yeah, well, if you can switch to another department, but I don't know. I really liked it.
I remember
And
like there were a few people in our section who at the end of first year, like, because of their high GPS moved out, and they were like, the feeling was like, oh, hum to bach gaye. Like, we got saved by moving out of biotech, that kind of feeling. So,
yeah. Yeah, no, I think, and also like it was really the first time like in a college campus. I still miss those days, and it was a great experience. So really enjoy your days, make friends that will, yeah, stay for life. And at the end of the day, no matter what you do, you should love what you do and have fun. Things will change. It's okay.
Yeah, I wanted to ask Elika because she's working in startup right now. So what is it like? How is it like to work in a startup and how does it feel in general?
It, for me, it's been great because I went in thinking that okay, I'm here for 2 months or so. So I told them whenever I get my permanent residency, I'm back. So don't put me down for too long. But they already had somebody in place. And I thought, okay, with my experience, I can just be in an advisory or guiding them role, kind of okay, checking things if things work out. But then it turned out that that person left, and I was just kind of, made to be the chief bioinformatician. So it was a bit of serendipity for me that way. But it turned out to be really great because I like that I was able to, just lay down the foundations for everything and build everything from. So it's all of my project, it feels so personal to me now.
I
So
totally relate
whoever
to that.
takes it up after me, I'm sure I will be, called upon and for much more longer whenever they require my input.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it okay to say like what would be the end product for the company, or is that still work in
Oh,
progress?
I did a webinar recently, actually, one of the products. So it's a 23andMe kind of company. I
Oh,
mean,
got
that's part of what we do. So yeah, if you know about that, so yeah, we do genetic testing, and it was interesting because most of the genetic data is for Caucasians, right? So I had to find ways to work with Indian ethnicity, not get too biased because of the Caucasian data. So that was a challenge. And also, like, picking the diseases or what information do you give to the people. So for example, I did also create panels for cancer, finding out, but this is genetic data, and genetic data is, there's not, so your genetic data kind of stays stable over your lifetime unless, sporadic mutations do happen, but most of it remains stable. So
even though I might predict for somebody that, you have diabetes risk and they don't see it for a few years, but the risk is there. So how do you explain it to people? How do you explain what a gene is to a person who does not know it? How do we, that has been a challenge too. And getting people on board, because when I talk to some of my family friends, I told them what I do, and they say, but do we really want to know that? Like,
Yeah.
do you want to know if if you have a risk for something? So that is why we haven't made the cancer panel public, because I feel like there's it would require more genetic counseling, and people need to understand that whatever risk I say, you have to take it with a pinch of salt, because it might or might not manifest. There's so many other factors at play. Your environment, such a huge factor there. Okay.
That's great. I hope they penetrate the Indian market. I'm curious how Indians will take it. Like it's an investment, right? Like that's the biggest challenge. I did like 23 and me, and like one of the big challenges, I was like talking to certain people, they're like, I don't want to invest that much money. Like that's the mindset, right? Like even ancestry.com for that
Yeah.
matter. Like over here,
Yeah.
like my roommate mapped their ancestry all the way to like 13 I don't know, like some crazy generations.
But
And
it doesn't happen for Indians, right? They don't. So some of my friends who took 23 and me, all they said was, okay, your Y chromosome is from Africa. And your chromosome is from the, yeah, no shit. Everybody's chromosomes are from Africa, and you go way down like that.
great work.
That's very interesting. And I had an sorry if I'm taking over, too much, but I have so many questions. What can I do? So I have another question for Akansha. You said that you are doing your postdoc now and you're thinking about, having your own lab. So, I mean, can you like share what your plans are and, what's ahead?
I have the same question actually.
Oh, yeah. So I'm not considering anything else. I just want my own lab. So for that, you need a PhD, and then you need to do a postdoc, ideally in a big, like a good reputed lab. And there are all these things that go into making it. So one, you need to like the work they do. So I want that's one important thing. Like Rohit sir said, they should be able to let you take what you develop here. So that's another thing. And then the funding is very important. So right now I'm in a super rich lab. I just waste money like anything. So I think that I did not know how important it is because I was in a poor lab before, but now it's amazing. So that's another thing that if you are thinking about it, consider in a postdoc lab. Yeah, and then you have to discover something so that you can have your own lab after that. So, and then in US, there is this, people get fellowships or grants. And it's always nice to show your recruiting people that you have ability to get grants. The problem is that for people on visa without green card or citizenship status, there are like maybe 5 things you're eligible for. So that's another problem. So know that. I don't know how it works in Europe, but here the opportunity is so limited and you have to show that. So luckily I applied for 2 of them and I got one, but it's very difficult. That helps. And then you publish and there's all sorts of politics. And then, yeah, so the one thing that I have now started thinking about is I want to do less and less experiments and get into more managerial and conceptual parts. So my lab allows that. I have a lot of techs and students working for me. So I just think and try out ideas. And then when you're picking a topic or a field, I think it has turned out that try to allow yourself to be eligible for many departments. So right now, for example, I'm doing neuroimmunology, which looks very niche, but actually, and within neuroimmunology, I'm studying pain, so somatosensation, how you feel things. So now suddenly I'm eligible for Department of Neuroscience, Neurobiology, Immunology, regular cell biology departments, then anesthesiology. So, and then a lot of other clinical, like pain, like clinics, and all of them will have tenure track positions. So hardcore basic science, like biochemistry department, immunology department, they're difficult to get into. So try to think ahead where you will be eligible once you have successfully finished a project or several projects in this lab. I don't know, and then apply for a lot of grants and get money. I think that's after, like, it's a weird thing because for 10 to 12 years you will only do experiments, and suddenly you will do zero experiments and you'll only raise money. So try to have that transition during postdoc, learn how to raise money and manage people and pitch ideas, and because skills will change, right? Like, for example, right now sequencing is the big deal, but after a while companies will be doing it. Companies are already doing it, so you can spend time learning it, but things will move on. So only hypothesis generation will not move on. So focus on that. And yeah, it's competitive. So I have to tell you that right now we had 80 people in our graduate school class, which was an umbrella program, and maybe 20 went for an academic postdoc. And then right now in my lab, there are maybe 30 postdocs, and maybe 3 of us are going to apply for an academic position. So, and then I don't know how many of us will get it. So it's competitive.
That's
I
very
just wanted to add in that so like choosing to be a prof or like joining like may establishing your own lab, like if PhD is like jumping into a pool, then that is like actually jumping into a deep hole inside a lake where like so you have decided that you're going down that path for sure, and like there is all the additional level stress of like having to write for grants, making sure that your students are on time in terms of like their PhD progress. There's just, and also like managing the finances, as Akanksha pointed out. There's just a lot of things. So like you want to prepare yourself in your postdoc for all those stuff. Like can you handle that? Like can you, like say if you get a budget of like say $100,000 for the through a fellowship or something, how are you going to decide like what amount of it are you going to use for salaries, what amount are you going to use for say buying equipment, all that kind of stuff. So that is the kind of experience that you want to gain in your postdoc. And like I didn't really like, so was that the question that you were asking, or like was the question if you didn't want to start a lab, then what are the options?
No, actually, I just wanted to spark a discussion because I know that I want to do a PhD. I know that I want to go back to India. I have no idea how what I'm gonna figure out, and I want to take one step at a time. So I talk to people, I learn from their experience, and then see what suits me. So that's
Yeah, I
why
think
all insights are welcome.
But like, so for researchers like who want to do a PhD but like do not want to get into the stress of actually like having to establish their own labs and all, I think there are plenty of opportunities there too. Again, like in industry there are quite a few opportunities and all, like in managerial roles. But even in academia there are like a lot of things that you can do where you don't want to set up your own lab. Like actually a lot of these science journals have like editorial or science communication roles that like are not too stressful. Then even like labs actually look for lab managers. Like when the lab gets really big, then the boss wants to have like 2 to 3 key people who can actually handle the whole stuff, where like at that point you are not really as responsible for anything in terms of like actually getting in the money or graduating the students, but you do get involved in a similar process without that like stress of having to do so. So there are like opportunities or like different roles for that kind of thing also, where if you want to do your PhD but do not want to actually start your own lab and all.
That's good to hear. But there's one more question, especially for you, Rohit, because you mentioned that at some point you want to go back to India and maybe set up your lab there and stuff. So are you now in the process of developing those contacts? Because I always worry that I've spent too much time outside India. I don't know anything, and I've forgotten most of the things, and the bureaucracy and all the processes involved, and basically the work culture in general. So how are you dealing with that at the moment?
Honestly, I do not really, as in like I know that problem is like at the back of my mind, but like there are other important stuff that I have to think about before all that is like so It is something like more of like I've taken a decision and I have to figure out a way to make it work eventually. And so it is something that I'll have to figure out. Right now, what I've been doing though is that as I mentioned, that event that was organized by the STEM Peers group, it was essentially a conference for all people from all over the globe who wanted to come back to India to figure out what kind of research opportunities are there. They had, like, just similar like how we have bio network here, they had people who had already done that, like who had done their PhDs in US or Europe, and have now established their labs in Indian institutes. So when you talk with those people, you get to know, like, what kind of fellowships to apply for, like, what kind of competition is going to be there, which institutes have what kind of infrastructure and all. And right now the time is kind of ripe, like India is trying to recruit back as many folks as possible, and the Department of Biotechnology, Government of India, they are doing a great job in terms of marketing a lot of opportunities outside. So
And I just want to add that if you do want to go back, every time you visit India, like make sure you visit these institutes. They're always, you will have friends there. If you don't, just show up, send an email or something, try to give a talk there. And all of my friends who want to have a lab in India, they give a lot of talks in India, and they love the students there. That's the biggest plus, how good the students are, much better than the students we have here. So talk to them, see if that institute fits you or your research program. And also the research itself, you cannot just do anything that you want in India, right? So I do a lot of mouse work, and there are just so few, almost no places that can handle the kind of work I do. So either I go there and develop my ecosystem, or I pivot my research program. So if it's biochemistry, fly research, all of that, then it's easier for them to hire you also. So keep that in mind.
That makes sense. Thank you so much.
I had a question actually, maybe for Akanksha and Dr. Krishna, both of them. So, I mean, why Dr. Krishna, first of all, is because, so if you do a postdoc, I would expect that if you want to establish your own lab, then you need a Cell Nature Science paper, most likely. I mean, that's how, the general rule of thumb goes. But we know in science, sometimes it just doesn't work. So, when do you think is the time to say no and try it? And secondly, when is it too late? Maybe to the people who are working in industry can answer. When is it too late, maybe to go to the industry? Do you really want to have like a buffer where you can prepare yourself for such a mishap or something? Maybe all of you can actually add. Maybe Akanksha, ma'am, you can start. Or
Uh,
Krishna, ma'am, you can start. Whoever.
it's right, it's competitive, and one way for them to compare you from others is if you have a CNS paper. But things are changing a lot. Like if you are this science Twitter thing, right? Like people are really fed up with the peer review system. And like if you have two immunity papers, or like a first author PNAS with an eLife paper, like a lot of formula work, like everyone knows that not everyone is going to publish in CNS. So, and then you can always have a lab at a smaller university, get a tenure there, and then move up if you're successful. So there are all sorts of ways of doing that. I don't know. Like I thought about these things, like if people don't accept my paper, and then do I quit? And every time I was like, I'm not gonna let an editor tell me if I should quit or not. Like if I decide to quit science, I'm just gonna quit science because I personally do not enjoy it anymore. It's such a personal thing. So, and even like if it's too late or not too late, you will always have a PhD. So they're gonna hire you. You will be one of the smartest people in the room every time. So don't lose the confidence. Oh, I'm just too late, and people have moved ahead. I don't know, and it's a little stubborn thing to do, but what do you do, right? Like the resilience is like the other way of saying that you're just stubborn. You don't want to give up. So don't take it personally. Do not none of this, none of the failures take it personally. If you don't get a paper, don't take it personally. It's just you're part of a bigger system, and a lot of things are out of your control. And keep trying. I don't know. And a lot of times you will not be the only one making a decision. You'll have family, you'll have responsibilities. And then right now, maybe you're like, oh, I'll do this. And 5 years down the road, you don't know what's going to happen in your personal life too. So that's an important factor, in my opinion.
Okay.
Yeah. So maybe I can add to the part that, so I know group leaders who do not have a cell nature science paper, and they still have their own group. They still can attract money. And the thing about research is that there is like this basic research where the like I think there maybe the cell nature science is really valued, but there is also applied research, and these are people who are like thinking about projects where they can already like use published works and make like these ideas into a product. And in these cases, there like you don't have to show that you can do like high level science. You just have to be very good at organizing stuff, like trying to get this idea into a product. And that really requires another set of skills. And for example, the lab that I am working in, my boss does not have like his first author Nature paper, but he is very good at like getting an idea and turning into a combination or thing that we can make a product out of it and help the patient. So that's another set of skill. But like no matter what you do, you have to attract money, because it's super expensive. All that we do, like the one vial costs, I don't know, 2,000 euros or sometimes. So this is always important. And about giving up or not giving up, it's always a personal choice. At the like for myself, I always ask, am I happy in this job? Like in the morning, do I think like, oh, I have to go to work, or like, yay, I would like to go to work now, and I'm gonna do this and this and this today. And there are days where it's like, yeah, it's not like always one or the other, but I would say at least 80% of the time I really like the day, and I know that I'm gonna have a good time. And also, it's very important if you want to have your own lab to manage people. This is, you will not get away with it. And also the amount of work you have to do, like setting up contracts with the university, and like it's a lot of administrative work. So sometimes I even feel like that some of the professors, they don't have time to even like read papers as much as they would like, because they're only doing administrative stuff. And I also know that there is no too late for industry, because I know people with, I don't know, 10 years of experience who's transitioned to industry. And I also know people, like there was a professor in Heidelberg who was for many years in Genentech in US, and he moved back. So if you are good, people will see that. And if you're passionate about your work, it will always work. And there is a certain level of flexibility. And as long as you're willing to learn new skills and get into new topics, it will be fine.
Thanks a lot for the insights.
Uh, just wanted to add in a few points there. So most of the times, like I think 90% of research areas, like when you get into it, you know that whether you're going to have a chance at a cell science nature paper or not. Like most of the fundamental fields, like for example, I studied bacteriophages. These are viruses that infect bacteria, right? That isn't like that exciting now anymore. So until unless it is stuff like CRISPR-Cas gene editing that comes out of phage research, there's no way that we are going to get a paper published in Nature and Science. And as Akaksha pointed out, right now it is a growing feeling in the field that these journals are a little overrated, so like that shouldn't be. But like if you are someone who trying to set up your own lab and do not have these, then I think it is more important about what other stuff can you bring, because it eventually comes down to how do you adapt your application or like yourself to the position where you are applying for. If, for example, so my strategy currently has been something like, so I taught this phage genomics course, and which in India there's no phage genomics course as of now for sure. So I know that I can bring in that aspect where I can have students from that class essentially eventually get publications out of it. So that isn't something that is a common thing in India, right? So I know that I do not have a cell science nature paper, but I bring in this other stuff, and then also doing so. For example, in terms of networking and all, I've tried building science communication profiles. So like where these are generic, like, magazines or something, but where you actually, like, put out something. It could just be an opinion article. It could be like, you talking to someone in the field, whatever it could be. But like, basically, again, marketing yourself out there, like, to see, like, if you do not have the CNS paper, but like, what everything else do you have to make up for that? If you can, like, make that good, then, like, it is good enough, I think.
That's pretty insightful. Thanks a lot.
Okay, I think it's super late for people in India,
Yeah.
and I'm sure everyone else also has plans. And I'm really happy that we had such an insightful discussion from all the speakers and all the moderators and participants today. So I hope to see you all tomorrow and continue such exciting discussion. So have a good day and see you tomorrow. Bye.
Thanks for joining. Bye bye.
Thanks,
Bye,
everyone.
everyone.